Hello and a warm welcome to the Federal. I'm Neelu Vyas. Bharat Jodo Yatra not only enhanced the image of Rahul Gandhi, but it also created a historic movement to fight out the politics of hate. Whether at all the grand old party will be able to translate it electorally is anybody's guess. But which way is Congress heading to post the Bharat Jodo Yatra? Is it picking up the right issues? Is it making the right noise? And also, a lot of questions on where the opposition unity is heading to. I'm joined by the renowned psephologist, activist, and the leader of Swaraj India, Yogendra Yadav. Welcome, sir, and pleasure having you on the Federal.
Thank you. Delighted.
So my first question to you is, you were a prominent face of the Bharat Jodo Yatra. Did it really achieve its objectives? Because it was said that it'll fight out the politics of hate. Don't you think the time now is to really go back to the drawing board and see that what were the outcomes of the Bharat Jodo Yatra through all those areas through which the Yatra passed on?
Indeed, it's a good time to reflect and think about what the Yatra achieved. For people like me, you see, the Bharat Jodo Yatra was an initiative of the Congress Party. So really, they are the ones who should be, get the principal credit. They are the ones who have to think principally about how to take that energy forward. But for people like me, those who came from civil society, from people's movements, from people's organizations, who are not from the Congress Party, but who decided to join this yatra. For us, the uppermost objective was singular, which is there is politics of hate in this country. There is attempt to really divide this country on Hindu-Muslim lines. There is a dismantling of this republic. There is complete disregard for the constitution of this country. And so we said, for us, we can have 100 issues, we can have 100 differences with Congress Party, but right now the uppermost issue is somehow save this republic from disintegration, from dismantling. And we thought the yatra could do one thing. No yatra in this world can achieve, transform a country completely. We honestly, people like me thought, okay, if this yatra somehow manages to halt, temporarily challenge just this Hindu-Muslim divide which is sought to be created, that would be a great achievement. The yatra achieved much more than what people like me expected. Not only did it manage to puncture the BJP's narrative, and that's the important thing. The yatra was the one thing that one could expect.
But Mr. Yadav, do you mean to say that BJP? But are you saying that BJP's outrage or the reconciliatory tone towards the Muslims, even if it is Pasmanda Muslims, is it the outcome of the success of the Bharat Jodo Yatra, that it was able to puncture the politics of hate?
I would not give the yatra credit for everything, but within 4 weeks of the yatra, the RSS chief was meeting Muslim intellectuals. Within a few weeks of the yatra, the RSS general secretary said there's poverty in this country, there's unemployment in this country, there's economic inequality in this country. Now, you would be politically naive not to connect it to the fact that these issues were being raised every day and were gaining traction. What the yatra achieved was a narrative shift. For 8 years or more, the BJP had a complete stranglehold over narrative, not only over what it was saying, not only over what it got the media to project, but they also controlled what the opposition would criticize them for. And that is a true narrative hold. After a long, long time,
No, but wasn't that whole temporary? Mr. Yadav, wasn't that whole temporary? I mean, it was like for a very brief period. Now, once the yatra is over, we see BJP going back to the same politics of Hindu-Muslim divide. Don't you see that happening?
BJP would certainly try to. That's their, they know that's the only card they have. So, of course, I don't expect them to surrender it overnight and run away. The only question is whether it has lesser traction than before, whether they are being pushed by other things that are happening. And as luck would have it, the end of the yatra was accompanied by 2 or 3 other things that happened, which have opened a really new opportunity. The yatra, by its sheer effort, and for which Rahul Gandhi should get the credit that he deserves, the yatra managed to poke a hole in this narrative stranglehold that the BJP had. No more, just a hole. But that's
Right.
important to puncture that. End of the yatra was accompanied, undesigned, A, by Adani episode, the meltdown of the Adani, and the clear exposure of the nexus between the Prime Minister and Adani. So I increasingly call it Modani. That's probably the correct name for this
But
model.
how can you connect the Yatra with the Adani episode? Because
No, 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 I
Hindenburg
don't. Of
was,
course, the
it
yatra
was
has,
it was
as I
2 years
said,
long investigation which culminated into this report.
yeah, of course. That's exactly my point. My point is not that the yatra created it. It so happened that the end of the yatra coincided with three things that happened independent of the yatra. One is
Right.
the Adani episode. Second is the BBC episode. The documentary comes, the government reacts the way it does, and then IT raids, which sort of tells the whole world. If anyone in the world had any doubt about what was happening to free media in this country, the BBC
Right.
episode nailed it. And third, don't remember that important incident of the Pathan movie succeeding
Right.
against concerted effort. Now, that you could say it's a success of Shah Rukh Khan, of course it is. But the important thing is, somewhere people in this country are tired of this whole narrative of Hindu-Muslim division. They want to see something positive, some positive nationalism coming out, which is what the movie portrays. So I think basically what we have today is a very unusual constellation of forces, Bharat Jodo Yatra's impact being the principal one, which creates a political opportunity. Now, it's
I
an
like the word.
opportunity.
I like the word which you used, positive nationalism. So you mean to say that the BJP's nationalism had negative tones, and Bharat Jodo Yatra gave a counter and brought in a positive nationalism, which was much needed by the country. Are you saying that?
Of course, BJP's nationalism is no nationalism that stands in complete negation of the values of our national movement.
Right.
Uh, BJP's nationalism is a copycat nationalism of the European German variety. That nationalism is inward looking. That nationalism has to inevitably look for enemies inside and outside. That nationalism is very narrow-minded, and that nationalism leads you to the kind of things that happened in Germany in 1930s. Indian nationalism, on the other hand, the nationalism of our freedom struggle, the nationalism of Gandhi, of Rabindranath Tagore, of Nehru, that nationalism is positive nationalism. It's a nationalism that unites Indians with each other, and which unite India with the world outside, with South Africa, with Latin America, with East Asia. This is the Bandung nationalism. This is the nationalism that we have inherited.
Right.
So, what BJP calls nationalism is not the nationalism of India. It is a foreign imported nationalism which doesn't work in this country. And I'm very happy that Bharat Jodo Yatra reminded us of the earlier, deeper, authentic nationalism.
But the kind of brute majority which BJP has, and to bring it to the toes or to bend it on the knees, uh, how will the civil society or maybe political parties like Congress sustain this positive nationalism? And supposing if you have to carry on a yatra like a Bharat Jodo Yatra, it was a logistical nightmare, everybody says, and we've seen that closely. It was a logistical nightmare. So how practical will it be to sustain positive nationalism through a sustained yatra like this, or you'll have to find other alternatives?
That is the principal challenge of our time. A yatra like this uh, created an opening. Opening by itself does not assure you entry. There is a possibility. After that, you have to make an effort. What it has done is कि जहां दीवार थी वहां दरवाजा बना दिया है. मगर दरवाजे में घुसना तो खुद पड़ेगा ना, काम तो खुद करना पड़ेगा. दरवाजा बनने से तो काम नहीं हो जाएगा. What it has done, हिंदी में मैं कहता हूं, जहां परती जमीन पड़ी हुई थी उस पे हल चला दिया. अब हल
Right.
चलाने से फसल पैदा नहीं हो जाती. आपको बीज लगाना पड़ेगा, आपको पानी डालना पड़ेगा, उसको देखना पड़ेगा. All that remains to be done, and that is the challenge.
So
Will it
who's
be
going to do
sustained
that?
through more
Is it
yatras? I don't know if we need more yatras because
no, no, but Mr. Yadav, my question is that who's going to, sow those seeds again? Will it be the civil society? Will it be the opposition party? Or it's going to be a collaborative effort of the civil society and Congress and many other political parties? Will it just
it
happen
has to
on
be a
the shoulders of
collaborative effort
Congress?
of every Indian who wants to defend this republic. Congress party, as the single largest political force with the largest footprint, has the first responsibility. And because they carried on this yatra, of course, they have the first expectation in the country from them. But this cannot be only their responsibility. It has to be responsibility of all those who joined this yatra, people like us. I cannot say, well, let Congress do something, we will think about it. No, it's my country. I mean, defending this country is my job. It's
Right.
also your job. It's the job of media. It's the job of
Absolutely.
all the opposition parties. And allow me to say that the beneficiary of this yatra is not merely the Indian National Congress. I dare say that the DMK has benefited from it, the TMC would benefit from it, anyone who seeks to oppose this hegemony, whether they were in the yatra or were not in the yatra, they all benefit from it. And everyone has stakes in continuing this yatra, not necessarily in the form of a foot march. There are 100 ways of carrying this yatra forward,
No,
and I'm
but
sure Congress will not come up with
do these political parties you've named even realize what the import of Bharat Jodo Yatra has been? And also talking about Congress, Congress is trying to create an impression that Bharat Jodo Yatra has been its copyright. Look at the videos which are coming in and look at the narrative which is built after the yatra. It seems that it was all about Rahul Gandhi. It was all about Congress spearheading this yatra. So my question is that the parties, of course, you said that it will benefit DMK, it will benefit Trinamool, but these parties hardly realize that, and Congress is going back to its old ways. There is a feeling like that. What would you say to that?
I grant some intelligence to all these political parties. They may not publicly come out and say these things, but I do think they realize the change in public mood. Uh,
Right.
I grant some need of publicity to every political party in this country, including the Congress. So I mean, this is in human nature. In every organization of the world, you tend to advertise yourself, and why not? Congress
Right.
has had a wonderful opportunity after a long time, and I don't grudge them some bit of self-advertisement. That's nice. I think the country could do with some of it in the face of the aggressive publicity that this government has launched and Mr. Modi does about himself. But the important question is, uh, will Congress find innovative ways of carrying this forward? Not necessarily more yatras. There are 100 other ways of carrying this forward, and
Right.
that's why everyone look forward to what comes out of Raipur, whether we have interesting ideas. I'm sure Congress has already announced Haath Se Haath Jodo Abhiyan, which has been happening, but much more is expected. And on the part
Are
of
you
the
going
civil
to be
society,
part of the Haath Se Haath Jodo campaign of Congress? Is the civil
no,
society
there's
going to
a
be part of it?
difference. When the Congress gave a call for Bharat Jodo Yatra, Congress invited all civil society organizations and political parties to please join it. Haath Se Haath Jodo Abhiyan, Congress has clarified, is its party campaign. And absolutely right. Why should political parties not have things which they do exclusively? At the same time, what we have done, the civil society organization, people's movements and organizations, we held a national convention within 1 week of the end of Yatra. We did not wait even for 3 weeks. Congress plenary has taken 1 month. They are a large party. They take time to organize these things. We organized our national convention within 1 week. Mr. Rahul Gandhi came for that. And so did a panel of 8 opposition parties about how to take Bharat Jodo Yatra forward. And the parties that joined or accepted included the NCP, the DMK, the CPI, CPM, RLD, RJD. Everyone came and participated in discussions about how to take this energy forward. So we have done so, and we have converted the civil society part of this yatra into a regular abhiyan. So we now have a Bharat Jodo Abhiyan. And we are
Okay.
saying Congress would do its own bit, but let us do our bit. And our bit is about communication, creating a truth army to take on the troll army. We don't
Okay.
need to wait for someone else,
Interesting.
and to have, and that's a large initiative over the next 1 year that we are going to undertake.
So from what you're saying, sorry to interrupt you, but those questions are coming in from what you're saying. So are we to assume that you said it's truth army versus the troll army now? So are you going to be spearheading this truth army in a way? And this is really, is it also an assumption that Congress or the opposition parties now have the support of the civil society? Because earlier there was an impression that all the civil societies were in favor of the BJP. But has the narrative now shifted? The civil society is in favor of Congress and other opposition parties?
To be absolutely fair, I think at no stage, I mean, this country, fortunately, we have this much of a legacy of the freedom struggle still left in this country. That if you look at creative people, artists, writers, or if you look at people's movement and struggles on the ground, they have never at any stage been with the BJP RSS ideology because it militates against all our cultural values. But yes, the civil society people's movements were not, they had all kinds of reservations about these parties, including the Congress, and they tended to keep an arm's length, including people like me. But now I think it's fair to say that all of us have decided to completely throw ourselves, our energies with any electoral attempt to bring back democracy to this country, and which in practical terms would mean uh, democratic, peaceful ways, constitutionally sanctioned ways of dethroning this party, which is out to dismantle this republic. So, yes. Civil society is aligned. The realization, for us, it's actually like the 1977 moment. In
Hmm.
1977, the principal question was just one: how to save democracy in this country from what was then Congress's threat, Congress's regime,
But
emergency, and how
Yadav,
to defend the
But you
country.
see, Yadav, if you look at the narrative of BJP, it's all about, that India has progressed the maximum under Modi. They don't talk about the constitution as what the opposition does, but they do talk about that, look, this is the kind of progress which the country has made. And that progress narrative is, of course, couched with and laced with nationalism. It also has the polarizing energies of Hindus versus Muslims. So all that narrative together with the troll army does give an edge to BJP. So, how is really opposition going to stand up to this narrative of BJP? And are they
This
well
is the
equipped to do that?
This is the standard technique of all authoritarian regimes, not just the BJP here. Look at what Mr. Erdogan is doing in Turkey. Look at what Mr. Putin says in Russia. Look at what Hitler did in Germany. I mean, these are absolutely standard copybook techniques. How do you take them on? By creating an alternative positive narrative, not merely by refuting. And unfortunately, for far too long, those who seek to oppose BJP's IT cell and BJP's troll army have spent their energy principally in refuting them. Now, the trouble is that facts do not matter beyond a point. Of course, everyone knows they are lying. Of course, everyone knows the things that they are peddling is not are factually wrong. The prime minister of this country lies routinely, almost every second day. That does not matter. There's something deep emotional connect that you need to respond to. So therefore, if you want to take on the troll army, you should not waste your energies in responding to them all the time. What is important is to create an alternative positive narrative, a narrative about what this country is, what this country's deepest values are, the truth of what has happened in the country in the last 7, 8 years, principally the truth about the economy, and
Right,
also, if I may add, the truth about what is happening to our borders in Ladakh and in Arunachal. The country
right,
needs to know the truth. So it
right,
has to be truth focused rather than simply responding to their lies. And it should have an emotional energy. The problem is that those who want to destroy this country have an emotional content, and those who want to defend this country have a dry reason to support them.
right.
We have emotions on our side. We need to work on that.
But do you think that all this is possible without a certain consonance? And I'm talking about a visible consonance within the opposition parties. Now, like Nitish Kumar recently said, that if all the opposition parties come together, then BJP will go to a figure which is below 100. Now, I don't know how realistic is that, but all this can happen only when the opposition comes together. We have a party like TMC, which is on some other looks like on some other branch of the tree. Then you have Aam Aadmi Party, which is sitting on some other branch. Then you have a BRS party, which is sitting on some other branch. So, Mr. Yadav, do you think that that's really going to be possible?
I think there's a difference between consonance and electoral alliance. Uh, Consonance is not Mahagathbandhan. I agree with you. Some consonance, similar vibes, a certain sense that the opposition is united in thinking that large forces in this country are finally possibly converging is important. But for that, a Mahagathbandhan is not at all necessary. I have said
Okay.
repeatedly, I used to do some electoral calculations at one point in my life. I've said repeatedly that Mahagathbandhan is almost a lazy reflex. It could actually boomerang. Please remember the largest opposition unity that this country had ever seen
Does it
was
need a
in
new nomenclature,
1977.
apparently? Does it need a new nomenclature with a common
No, no, not
objective?
just the nomenclature. No, no, no. You actually don't need a grand opposition coalition at the national level.
Okay.
What you need is opposition unity at the state level wherever it matters and is necessary. And if you
Okay.
just glance over the map of the country, you would realize that in a large number of states, opposition unity has already been achieved. Think
Okay.
of Tamil Nadu, think of Maharashtra, Jharkhand, Bihar. You would think of states where opposition unity is not necessary. Think of Bengal, think of
Right.
Andhra, many places it's not necessary. And think of places where there is no opposition to ally with. Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, who are
Right.
you going to unite with? So
Right.
actually, it leaves only two or three possible places where a bit of opposition unity tweaking is necessary.
Mhm.
So the important thing to remember is that this is not the principal problem with the opposition today. Lack of unity is not the real issue. The real
Right.
issue is lack of energy on the ground. If
Okay.
opposition parties, wherever they are taking on, in West Bengal, if Mamata Banerjee were to have an alliance with Congress and the left, it would actually help the BJP. I don't want
But
that
but
alliance.
but if you look at the flip side of the argument is that it's not the lack of energy amongst the cadres, it is the lack of leadership. Now, how agile and energized would be Nitish Kumar, we do not know. How energized and agile Rahul Gandhi will be, or what kind of role will he really play? Of course, Mr. Kharge recently made a statement that 2024 is going to be an alliance government, which is going to be headed by Congress. So, is it really the lack of energy, or is it the lack of leadership? We don't have a clear roadmap on who the clear leader will be because they look
I think
like
all
too
this is
many of
somewhat
them.
premature. All this talk about who would lead the alliance, who would the leader be, all this is honestly premature. I look at it as the 1977 moment. Did we know in 1977 who was the alternative to Mrs. Gandhi? No. Were
Okay.
there serious competitions within the Janta Parivar? Yes, of course, massive competition. If those of us who were sort of somewhat conscious at that time, I remember every day headlines about Charan Singh versus Moradi Desai versus Vajpayee versus Jagjeevan Ram. All this was the routine stuff of politics. But once elections happened, people realized that this was the principal challenge and they voted. So what you really need to do is to create that energy on the ground. And if I can add, the real big issue that can create that energy on the ground is right in front of us, and his name is Mr. Adani. This is the biggest expose in a long time, one of the biggest political scandals of this country, which directly implicates no less than the Prime Minister of the country. That Mr. Modi is a close friend and ally of Mr. Adani is no secret. Everyone in the world knows it. You don't have to show photographs. This is known. And that Mr. Adani's stock has crashed is no secret. That he faces serious allegations, not only in India, but all over the world, is no secret.
But
But I
how does the
hope all
opposition take this issue on the ground, Mr. Yadav? Because not many people really understand the technicalities of the stock valuation. A person sitting in some village, how would he understand? And how is that going to be translated before the people? That's also another challenge. And I don't see the opposition doing it. It's almost 1 month where I'm recording this interview today on a day when Hindenburg expose it's completing a 1 month time, and the government has not moved a bit except for that one inquiry we know probably is going to be done by a retired judge under the Supreme Court. We do not know anything else. No questions have been asked of the regulatory mechanism. Prime Minister has not spoken. We don't have any ministers who've been talking, except for the fact that one interview Mr. Amit Shah has given saying that everything is clear and we have nothing to hide. Now, how does and also the narrative of, look, this is India's growth story. Adani is India and India is Adani, and there's some foreign powers which are puncturing the growth story of India. That is all what we have seen in the last 1 month.
that the government has not responded actually strengthens the case for a movement and agitation. That the
Okay.
government is invoking the foreign hand actually shows how nervous they are. When you have to drape a fraud in national flag, you know how serious the situation is. Uh, the real question is, has the opposition yet taken it to the ground? Mr. Rahul Gandhi made a speech in the parliament, which I thought was a very significant speech. For the first time, someone stood up and spoke about what Mr. Adani is up to. And the important difference between Rafael and Adani is this. Rafael was a technical thing. You actually was very hard, even for us, to understand what exactly was the quid pro quo and how that was being worked out. In the case of in the case of Mr. Adani, you just have to show people how 6 airports were sold. You have to
Yeah.
show that how the prime minister was calling Sri Lanka to give loans to give contract to Mr. Adani. You don't need evidence to show how the LIC had invested in Adani and how the stocks have fallen. Please remember, a very significant proportion of population of this country now, almost 1%, invests in stocks. So a very large number of people understand when shares start plummeting. You have to, the people who are, people who have invested in LIC, they have not invested. Their hard-earned money is lying with the LIC. When their stocks fall, they understand. So this is compared to Rafael, this is far easier to take it. The evidence of collaboration is right in your face. This is another Bofors moment in our history. And I
Okay.
really think and hope that the opposition in this country will take it to the ground. Yes, they have given speeches in parliament. Yes, they have spoken. Yes, Congress has asked a question on social media every single day. But I would like that to be not on social media. I would like it to be on hoardings on the ground. I would like people to be walking. I would like people to be protesting. I would like the farmers to be standing. Our farmers movement have given a very strong statement. But
Are
I
you
would
saying
like
that
them to be
Congress is not
standing.
prompt enough? I mean, are you saying that Congress is not prompt enough to handle this issue? It should have gone to the ground by this time?
Because they have this big plenary coming,
Right.
and I do think that many of these things would be oriented towards the plenary, and
Okay.
something might come out after that. But yes, the sooner the better, and not just Congress. I think entire opposition. This is truly the next Bofors moment in India's history, and Bofors, which was peanuts compared to what Mr. Adani has done to this country. I mean, this is Bofors is nothing. You would today laugh at that figure, even if you were to translate that into contemporary currency.
But Mr. Yadav, despite this being a Bofors moment, this is easier to explain, as you said, to the people as compared to Rafael. But there is a Tina factor. You don't have an alternative to Modi. And if you talk to the people on the ground, they still feel कि Modi के अलावा तो कोई देश में और है नहीं. So this lack of leadership, this vacuum which you see, despite all these issues being there, do you think that the people will really vote for any of the opposition leaders? I'm not saying that A or B or C is going to be the prime ministerial candidate, but when you look at the persona of Narendra Modi, despite all these factors being there, do you think that the common man is really going to vote for an alliance government, if at all it comes up?
It depends on what the opposition does for the next 1 year.
Okay.
It's too early for us to be able to anticipate that. Depends on what they do with Adani, or Modani, as I call it. Depends on whether they tackle Modani seriously. Depends on how the assembly elections pan out. Depends on the ground level activities that they conduct. But I must say that the kind of sharp contrast that existed between number one and number two, say a year ago, in terms of
Right.
popularity ranking, that has been bridged.
Okay.
Not bridged is probably not the right word. The distance has been significantly reduced. I'm sure
Okay.
if you do another poll, Mr. Modi will still continue to be number one, as he has been for the last 10 years or more.
Right.
But this thing of, there's one Mr. Modi and there's darkness around him.
No, but
That
is this the domestic image you're talking about, or has the global image of Narendra Modi taken a beating? Because there are two different sides. For the domestic audience, he's more like a communal prime minister or somebody you say with who indulges more in Hindu versus Muslims narrative. But for the global world or for the international audience, he's more like a secular man who quotes Buddha, who quotes Mahatma Gandhi, and he would like to be called as a statesman. So, which image of Modi has got punctured?
I don't know anyone in the global audience took the Mahatma image or the Buddha image seriously. I've not heard anyone say that. They did take the fact that he's very strong leader. He's very popular in India, and the thing is that if you get a few thousand Indians to applaud for you in the Times Square, you look like a big leader. But I've not seen any international media headlines about him which would demonstrate his global popularity. The global thing is important because people in my village think that he's globally very powerful. That's the
Right,
bit that matters. The remaining we'll get to see when the financial markets respond. I think
right,
global citizens have a way to vote
right,
with their investment, so that we
right.
are going to witness.
Right.
But the important thing is about this domestic perception that Mr. Modi is globally very popular. It's a complete domestic fabrication, but that's happening. Will that be affected? To some extent, yes. But more importantly, I think the real issue which the opposition needs to hammer is about the economy. Economy is plummeting. Economy is being managed in a way which is comical, which is ridiculous. You don't manage a large economy with these kinds of ham-handed measures. There is
Right.
inflation, there is unemployment, there is inequality, and then you have the Adani scandal. What more does an opposition need in an election year? That is
Absolutely.
really the case, and that is where Mr. Modi's popularity faces the most serious challenge.
That brings me to the last question, Mr. Yadav, that despite all these big issues, a big scandal which is there on the platter for the opposition, even then, how is the opposition really going to communicate all this when you have a powerful social media which is in favor of, mostly in favor of BJP? You don't have the media by your side. How do you really take it to the people? That's my last question to you before I wind up. Yes, sir.
It is a big challenge, and then of course, but do remember this was the challenge in emergency as well. I was old enough to remember what happened during emergency.
Hmm.
That there was Akashwani, there were all the newspapers. They would say exactly as they were told. Every day we had headlines about 20 sutri कार्यक्रम की ये उपलब्धि वो उपलब्धि. All
Hmm.
that would happen. And
Hmm.
just before emergency, when Jayaprakash Narayan held that meeting in Ramlila Maidan, Doordarshan in those days, tiny little Doordarshan, but important in Delhi, ran a film called Bobby, which was the most popular film of that time. All that happened in those days. But people smelt a rat. People of this country and all over the world may not be able to deconstruct, decode, and understand all the games, but they smell it. They smell something is foul. Uh, and please remember, in the last instance, not in the first or the second instance, but in the last instance, the biggest media of this world is our mouth and our ears. That media kicks in when everything else fails. This is how, I mean, in case you think all these are mythical, romantic things, just look at what the farmers' movement did. The entire media was loaded against us. Every day they would discover something against us. After a point, farmers mentally switched off and said, Godi
Absolutely.
media.
Yeah.
This is what is going to happen. And remember, there would be a day, Nilu, I tell you, when this, the story of the king's emperor's new clothes will play out in this country. When
Well,
every child somewhere will stand up and say, ये तो झूठा है. And
hmm.
everyone would say, हाँ हाँ झूठा है, मेरे को तो 10 साल से पता था, हाँ मैंने 6 साल पहले बोला था ना तुमको ऐसा था. Everyone in this country would do that. This lie, this house of lies will collapse.
Okay, so strong words by you that the house of lies will collapse. But one thing which really brings a lot of hope is the opposition, which doesn't look like in a state of slumber. It has woken up and probably it has realized what its responsibilities currently are. It was wonderful talking to you, Mr. Yogendra Yadav. Always a pleasure. And one appeal to the viewers of the Federal, please share this video as widely as you can. Send us your feedback and stay tuned. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Subscribe to the Federal's YouTube page for more interesting updates.